We'll next illustrate who wins and who loses from trade across markets. And to make the pictures as clean as possible, we'll assume throughout that demand curves are equal to marginal willingness to pay curves. In other words, we'll assume that there are no income effects in the markets. The assumption is not crucial to our conclusion. It simply allows us to draw pictures that don't have as many curves in them as they otherwise would. We begin with the no-trade equilibrium, in which price is lower in Florida than it is in New York. As exporters buy low and sell high, they will equalize the prices across the two markets, assuming no substantial shipping costs. Consumer surplus by Florida consumers is measured on the demand curve by consumers in Florida, which is the unshifted magenta demand curve. The real demand curve in Florida did shift because exporters bought low in order to sell high, but here we're measuring the consumer surplus of Florida consumers. Their initial surplus of A plus B shrinks to just A because price has increased. Producer surplus in Florida starts with the area C when the initial price in Florida was low without trade. It then increases to area B plus C plus D, the area under the new green price, down to the supply curve of Florida producers. Overall surplus has therefore increased from the initial sum of consumer and producer surplus that was equal to A plus B plus C to the new sum of the two areas that's equal to A plus B plus C plus D. Consumers were made worse off, but producers gained more than consumers lost. In New York, consumer surplus by New Yorkers is measured on the demand curve in New York, and it begins with area E when the initial price before trade is high. Producer surplus in New York is the area above the supply curve by New York producers up to the price that New York producers get to charge. Initially, prior to trade, that's areas F plus G. When price falls to the green price, however, consumer surplus in New York increases as consumers like lower prices. It increases from area E to area E plus F plus H. Producer surplus falls from the area F plus G to just the area G. This leaves us with an increase in overall surplus of the area H. Consumers gained more than producers lost. It should be pretty intuitive that wherever price rises, consumers will lose and producers will gain, and wherever price falls, consumers will gain and producers will lose. What we have shown here is that in both markets overall surplus increases as a result of trade, which means that there would be a deadweight loss if trade was prohibited, a deadweight loss equal to area D in Florida and area H in New York. Notice that we didn't have to account for any surplus for exporters or importers. We're assuming that they operate in a competitive industry, and therefore their profit will be zero. We can see that in the picture by the fact that prices equalize across the two markets, so that ultimately exporters and importers are buying at roughly the same price at which they are selling. In the real world, a slight difference in prices remains, sufficient to compensate exporters and importers for the opportunity cost of their time and whatever shipping costs there are. But again, it's a good approximation in our models to simply assume prices equalize.